Arsenault, working actor, career coach, and the founder of The Global Actor. Thanks for joining us for episode 3 of the Success Series with Erica Spires. In this episode, we discuss all things tour life, including what made the Once Tour something special, the personal side of touring, what's some great things to bring along on tour to make a hotel room feel more at home might be, as well as finding your own voice in a show that is already set.
Just being plugged into a show that had already been set? And if so, what was that like?
Yeah. The cool thing with Once is that, yes, I was, but the creative team they were very interesting with how they plugged us in. They did appreciate our individuality. For example, we all had the same costumes that the previous person did, but our hair didn't have to be the same. We just looked like the way we looked, and like there was, if you're playing Reza, who's like the edgy girl, sure, you had to have an edge to you, but that edge changed based on who was doing the part. Mm-hmm. So it took a while to kind of figure out through rehearsals and being plugged into the show what my value was to the group. And it couldn't be the same as the value of the person who did it before me, right? She had a different skill set and a different, different things that she brought to the company. And she was still in the company. She had just switched roles.
Okay.
So she couldn't have been more supportive of me taking over her last role. And that was super helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah, she was one of the people who actually trained me. So we did 3 weeks in New York training with the Broadway company. Mm-hmm. And then we went on the road for 2 weeks and trained for 2 weeks with the touring company.
Okay.
Then I was on.
Wow.
So it was a 5-week total process, and it really needed to be. Mm-hmm. So Once likes to say they don't like to give you a spot on the floor where to stand. Mm-hmm. They'll give you certain things that are very specific, but they're not like you stand at number 8 and now you turn this way. They want you to find your own way. So that's the part that took a while. I knew the basic structure of what they wanted me to do, but it wasn't until I kind of found my own voice in it, which was probably a couple months after I'd already started, where I was like, oh, this is how my body moves in space to this track.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds like exciting and scary at the same time because they want you to be organic.
Yes.
But there's probably wanting some safety there.
Yes, exactly. So you have to give them a certain sense of like, oh, I know what you want here and I can do that specifically. But then you have to after you do that, you have to try to make it your own.
Okay, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. You had mentioned that you've been playing violin since you were 3. Do you feel like if an actor, singer wants to get into a show like this, they've got to be so down with an instrument, or do you think it just depends on the show? Do you think
Yeah, it depends on the show. I mean, I know some people who are in Once who were really good at one instrument but didn't know another one, and they kind of figured it out. Like they were already good musicians, but they may have not known that instrument. On the other hand, you have some other actor-musician shows that some of them are more demanding in terms of playing. Mm-hmm. Some of them are more demanding in terms of dancing or singing. It depends on the show. So I think cabaret, for example, from what I understand, I haven't been in for that, is a little less difficult when it comes to the instrumental parts, but they're more difficult when it comes to the dance parts.
Sure. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So
I don't think people should be discouraged,
great,
from it.
Okay, great. And now's a good time to pick that instrument up and get practicing. Cool. Great. Anything, let's talk a little bit about the actual thing of being on tour. Mm-hmm. What was that like? How long were you on tour, and what was it like just personally as well as professionally?
I got really lucky with a great group of people. I don't know how all tours are, but I've heard that ours was quite special. Part of it is that we were a band rather than just being actors on a stage. So we had to listen to the show every night it wasn't a lot of like, oh, I'm staying backstage for half an hour and then coming back on. You were there and you were experiencing things together the whole time. Outside of that, we did a lot of gigs on our own just for the fun of it.
Great.
There were, I'd say 3 or 4 albums that came out of it that various people they were inspired to write their own music. So that happened.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah. The rigors of touring, I mean, they're real. There's a reason you're getting paid the way you are. It was hard, you get tired. You're moving like every Monday. And just imagine moving and however much everybody hates it. Mm-hmm. And then you're doing it every week. And granted, it's not your entire apartment, but it's your life. It's whatever you have with you, and you're doing it every week. So there's something happens to your brain and you get very forgetful. Just because you don't know where to go for little things like, where do I go to the bank? Where's the next time I'm going to find an ATM? Or where do I go to get my hair done in this place? And what if this goes wrong? And so those little things can really mess with your head. So I checked with a lot of my friends who had toured and got like lists from them.
That's great. I was just going to ask, because when I was on tour with a children's theater company a while back, they would give us every stop that we were going on. They would tell us like the reviews of what the good restaurants were. So they had already done that for us. So your friends who had toured, you kind of did the same thing.
Yeah. And our company managers were really good about giving us some of that basic stuff as well. But it was helpful to have like, Catherine Stornetta told me little things like, get a French press. You want good coffee and you want your own coffee and you want and also bring along a hot water bubbler and something to dim the curtains, like to block out the curtain, like, or to hold the curtains together so that you can have a dim enough room, or bring candles so it smells like home, things like that. I found that, scent was a big thing early on because you're in hotels or other places and it just doesn't feel like home. So whatever you can do to physically make it, your senses feel at home is really helpful. Because mental health is very important. And then typically what it would be is Mondays would be travel days. We'd travel most of the day. Sometimes we get lucky and we could have a whole evening off. Sometimes it was partial evening. And then on Tuesday, we would be in the next day for sound checks around 5 or 6. Then we do the show Tuesday. Sometimes we'd have an opening night party in the city we were in. Wednesday, we would typically have a rehearsal for the understudies, then a Wednesday night performance. Sometimes we'd have a Thursday rehearsal, and then a Thursday night performance. So you're doing 8 shows a week plus sometimes 2 rehearsals a week.
Okay.
Sometimes we didn't have any. But if an understudy was going on, we'd always have a rehearsal so they could be plugged in.
Okay.
So you basically kind of have your days usually partially off. And then the weekends are just so busy. You're so tired because you're doing Friday night, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. And then Monday morning, usually early, you're on a bus or to an airport to make the next stop.
Cool. That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to if you have any thoughts about being in a serious relationship while on the road, and because I'm sure a lot of actors have to deal with that. And do you have any tips about making that work? I mean, I think we were fairly successful with it, my husband and I. We've been together a long time, so that was helpful. But it was difficult. In the beginning, it was definitely difficult, just the transition. He also lost his job at that time. They were doing a bunch of layoffs. So he went through a job loss the same week that I moved to New York to start rehearsals. Oh my gosh. So you weren't there for that.
I wasn't there for that. And then our cat had cancer. And so he was just coming out of that. And it was like, it was really hard for him in the beginning. And it was hard for me, but we found that it was harder for him because he was the one with everything was normal at home except that I wasn't there, which was a huge hole. And for me, everything was new.
Right. And it was everything that you've been wanting to do. Also.
Yeah. So even if it was hard for me, it was still exciting. For him, it was hard and not super exciting.
Sure.
The cool things were like focusing on those times when you can go somewhere new together. Like he came to Japan with us for a week that was awesome. And that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise, you know. DC, like we found that he came to several spots to visit. We found that really 5 weeks is about the max that you want to spend physically away from each other. Mm-hmm. Ideally less than that.
Yeah.
The longest we went was like 7.5. And that was like, who is this person when I saw him again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Thanks for sharing that, because if you just go in it thinking we're going to make it work, who knows how, it sounds like you figured it out, and you figured out what worked for you guys.
Yeah. And my brother, Mike, he travels all the time, and he was the one who was like, Erica, you really don't want to go more than 5 weeks.
Perfect.
And I found it was totally true.
Great.
Outside of that, you know, it's helpful when you have other people in your cast who are also in a long-term relationship, so that you have people to talk to about what it's like, and make sure that you're all making time for your other person back home.
That's great.
Because, you know, just simply proximity, it's hard to make new memories with somebody that you're not seeing every day. So you don't want those phone calls to get stagnant and boring, right? And of course they're going to get stagnant for both sides, because you're both talking about things that the other one has no emotional attachment to. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where physically seeing each other as often as you can comes in.
Cool. That's great.
And developing that trust. He loved meeting my castmates and going out with them. Mm-hmm. He's like, he made a very strict effort. The first 2 times he came out, actually every time, but the first time in particular, I said, do you want to go do something just us? And he's like, no. We're doing stuff with your group, because I don't want them to associate me with, when I come into town, you're not around. I want to like interact and get to know them.
That's awesome.
And then they all became friends, and we're still friends now.
That's great. Oh, yeah. That's cool. That's awesome. Anything else that you want to share about tour life?
I mean, there's so many things. It's so exciting. Just take it in. If you get a chance to do it, why not? I mean, everybody's told me, I was on tour for how long? 15 months? If you get a chance to do a 6-month tour, do it. You know, I was always like, I could never do longer than 6 months and be away. But I saw so many cool things that I wouldn't see otherwise. And I met great people, and not just people on my tour, but people in the cities that we went to. Right. And I guess different cultures. Yeah, I would say take advantage of it.